Well, spring is at last in full flow. The young foliage is on the trees, the buds are on the trees, the squirrels are running about, the birds are singing in the morning and in the evening. There's a warmth in the air, there's a warmth. When the sun comes out now, there's a warm warmth to it rather than a cold warmth there was a month ago. And we're all enjoying it. But there are millions upon billions of people who aren't enjoying it, who once enjoyed it, but don't enjoy it anymore. Last week we interred my mum's ashes in the family grave opposite the pub that my granddad ran for about 40 years before and during the war. There's no room for anyone else in it now, so goodness knows what they're going to do with me. So she's back with my dad and 3 other people. 2 of them I know, the other one I've not a clue, but apparently it's some auntie. And I joked that now she's in there, my dad will probably be looking for a nice quiet grave in Portugal. So I'm going to talk about my mum today, and I'm not doing this for any morbid and maudlin reasons, because I find death neither maudlin or morbid. I just have to think back over the 70 odd years that I knew her and wonder whether I loved her. I think I must have loved her, but I didn't really like her at times. She wasn't a likeable person at times. We were at odds all the time. My brother is my mother's son and I am my father's son. My father was a beautiful, soft, gentle man who was loved in the community. My mum was strong, very two-dimensional. There was no feeling or love for anything. She never showed love. I never hugged my mother. My mother wouldn't allow people to hug her. It was a very awkward moment when you tried to. But that doesn't mean she wasn't a great mum. She was a great mum. She was a great grandma, even though I don't think she had any commitment to her grandchildren. She never said she loved them. I'm just assuming that because it's what grandparents do. My dad died when he was 50. I spoke to him at 8 o'clock one evening and he was gone by 5 o'clock the following morning. He had a heart attack. And at the time they were living in a beautiful 17th century cottage on the moors in a place called Edgeworth above Bolton. It was one of these old cottages, stone cottage with 3 foot thick walls, and you put a ball on the dining room floor and it would roll into a corner because nothing was even. And after my dad died, my mum had to move out. She had to sell it because it was a grade 2 listed building. That meant anything you wanted to do to it had to be done to the original spec. So if she wanted any plastering doing, it had to be done with horsehair plaster by a craftsman, and she couldn't afford it, so she moved out. At the time I only used to see them every 2 or 3 months. I had my own life. I was in my early 20s. I was single. I was just enjoying life, and she moved, and for a few years she had a great life. She travelled. She took up golf and found out she was a great golf player. And she had a good life. And then I ended up getting married and divorced. And I bought my own house and I got married and divorced very, very quickly. And I lost both houses, and that's why I'm renting at the moment. And that seemed to be the time when Mum decided to make me her little cause célèbre. She was very difficult. My mum was nothing like me. My mum was like my brother. My dad was a beautiful person, and I'm like my dad. Not that I'm a beautiful person, but we have the same interest: music, art, very gentle, never argued, never raised our voices. And my mum was tough and hard, didn't like music, had really no interests. She read a bit, and that was about it, and travelled a lot. But she didn't have a soul. She didn't have that deep passion for life, that I've got to follow my dream feeling like I have, and that's why I never made much money, and I've stumbled and I've fell all through my life because of decisions, and she decided that she was going to put me right, and she was very good at it. I believe she bullied my dad. I really do believe that, and I think that may have contributed to his ill health, because I've been the butt of it. When I used to go up on a Tuesday before she moved, I couldn't sleep on Monday night. I felt sick because I knew what was coming. It was conflict. It was you will, I will. Very, very incredibly strong, but with that strength there came like this aggression that she didn't seem to be able to control. At the funeral, I said, one thing she always used to say to me, is she couldn't control it. Why don't you? Why don't you? Whatever I did, why don't you? Why don't you do what I say? Why don't you? Why don't you? Why don't you? And I fell out with her about it, and I argued with her about it. And I remember saying things, and I could see her. She just wanted to say it, and then she'd just go, why don't you? And it used to drive me mad. And it was just shouting and angst, because I believed she was frustrated in how I turned out, because it wasn't how my brother had turned out. No, I love my brother. He's brilliant. He did very well. Went to university, left university in the north of England, up near Newcastle. Got married, had beautiful children. He's still married to my beautiful sister-in-law. And he did very well. And I didn't. I crashed about through life, changing my job, relationships, marriages, financial mistakes, everything. And it all was part of the life I'd chosen, because the life I'd chosen didn't really lend itself to sensible decisions. But I remember my brother saying to me one day, I've got all the money, but you've got all the stories. And that's true. I have. But my mum wanted me to be like my brother. She didn't want me to be what I wanted to be. And I believe she was probably like that with my dad as well, because I just couldn't see them. Two such clashing personalities. They loved each other, of course they did, but I couldn't see them getting on without this conflict. The trouble is, you couldn't get my dad into conflict. So that must have been incredibly frustrating for my mum as she pecked away at him day after day. And he just buried himself in his art and his music and his history and his writing. They were polar opposites. And I was a polar opposite to my mum. She was profoundly deaf all my life, my mum as well. It's something I never even think about, because I lived with it all my life. But very independent. At 96 years old, she decided that she couldn't cope with a two-storey house. She had a beautiful little two-bedroom house on the side of a hill in Bolton with a lovely view at the back. And she sold it, and she went up to the beautiful little village in North Yorkshire where my brother lives, where there is some kind of warden-controlled accommodation where you've got your own little place, but it's part of a community. And she'd only been there a couple of months when she had a fall, followed by a stroke. And the first time I ever went up there, I'd never been up. She badgered me every week, every few days to go up. But I thought I was having a break. This pressure was off, and the pressure was real, and the pressure would make me ill as well. Having an old parent who is so strong and articulate and intelligent and confrontational, it's very, very difficult. And the first time I went, I made excuses to not go up, and I was actually going up that weekend, and then she actually FaceTimed me. She was in an ambulance, and obviously the signal was bad, so she was there and she had blood on her face, and then it all went off, and next thing I knew, I got a phone call off my brother to say she'd had a stroke. I went up, and I ended up going up every week, and it's 2 hours there and 2 hours back on the worst motorway in the British Isles. It was awful, and I used to go up, and she couldn't talk, and she couldn't communicate. If anyone's been in that position, you know how difficult it is to be in that position, to go up and see somebody who's been so vibrant and intelligent and outgoing all the life and strong and argumentative, to be reduced, to be brought down to someone who's lying in a bed, losing weight rapidly, unable to speak, unable to eat. And this went on for about 2 months. And then I got a phone call at 10 o'clock at night from my brother to say that she'd gone. And I was relieved. I was relieved. I was mostly relieved because she was out of it, because it wasn't her. I wasn't going up visiting my mum. I was going up visiting some husk. And I know that she didn't want to be here because she'd said so to my daughter. And if she said so to my daughter, who was a real grandma's girl, and mum knew that, and she wouldn't have done anything to upset her, then she must have been in fairly dire straits. She probably didn't want to say it to me because she did love me. I think she loved me passionately. She loved me as much as any parent can love a child. But she didn't like what I'd become, and she wanted to change me. She wanted to mould me. And in the end, she went, and she'd never changed me. And the last time I went, I sat with her, and she held my hand, and she'd never held my hand in her life. And she held my hand, and she just put her hand on, I took Molly up, she loved Molly. And I put Molly on the bed, and she sat with her hand on Molly and her other hand holding me, and that was the last time I saw her. Next time I saw her, she was in an urn, sitting in my dining room for a month before we put her in the family grave. And lots of people have been through this. And I think there is kind of this archetypal type of grieving that we're all expected to do, isn't there? This period of weeping, this period of sorrow. And it's like, right, you've gone through that period now. Oh, hang on, you're going a bit longer. You should have finished that period yesterday. You need to finish that now and get on with the next process. And it doesn't work like that. I remember when my dad died and I never shed a tear for a week. And I love my dad very, very much. And then we just sat at the dining room table one day, and I realised that, and I was only in my early 20s, and I realised we would never sit together at the table having a meal and chatting again. And that did me head in. I don't think I'll ever go through that process with my mum. Of course I loved her, she was my mum. But we were so different. We were different and we were distant. We had nothing at all in common. Will I ever shed a tear? I don't know, I didn't. And like I say, my feeling when she went was of relief. Relief that she was out of the hellhole that she'd found herself in, but also relief that those years, because it was only me and my mum, there was only ever me and my mum, because Pete moved away when he was 17 to go to university. And I knew that was over. And it was like, I'd got my life back. It sounds awful, doesn't it? I'd got my life back. All that was over. All the shouting and the angst and the phone calls. Come up here, my electricity's gone off. So I'd drive up, and it was like 3/4 of an hour from my house to her house, and I'd get there and all the lights would be on, and she'd say like, oh yeah, they came back on. So I'd have to get in the car and come home again. All the shouting, all standing in the rain at the front door because she got something to complain to me about. And I'd stand there, and she'd open the door and start complaining. I'd say to her, will you please let me come in out of the rain before you start giving me hell? That. The frustration. She wanted to be independent. She was independent. She wanted to be even more independent. She did all shopping online and things like that, but whenever there was something to fill in online, and this is where I don't always agree with expecting everyone of all ages to be computer savvy, and then we would try to do things on her iPad, and she'd just end up bursting into tears and shouting at me. And then I'd just end up sitting in the armchair grumping. It was all over. All that was over. I'd got my life back. Sounds awful, but I had. And that's how I felt. And that's how I feel now. There's a peace in my life that was always there, but had this thing on the periphery called my mum. Now I can think about doing things. Now I can think about moving eventually when I'm on my own, or even while the monster's still here. We can think about that. We can do things on a whim. We can be spontaneous. We can stop worrying about her, because she was 97 years old, and she was 97 years old. Her body was 97 years old. She was old. She was frail. Her mind was razor sharp. Her anger was to be seen, to be believed. But her body was 97, and it was breaking down, and it was frustrating, and she was unhappy. And then she got this little bit of happiness. She'd never lived in a community. She lived in this community, and they used to do bingo. Never played bingo in life, but she used to go down to the community room, and she loved it. And she'd phone me up and tell me how much she was loving it, and then say, right, when are you coming up? And I feel very selfish, and I feel very ungrateful for thinking like this, but I knew her for a long time. I knew how difficult she could be. She could be a very, very, very angry person. Anger and intelligence, what a mix. And that was my mum. Will I miss her? I don't know. I'm old and she was very old, and mortality loses its edge as the years pass by. It becomes an inevitability. There's no threat, there's no scare. It's just one of those things in the future. Well, this didn't go where I expected it to go, and it could have gone on a lot longer. I'm going to bring it to a close because I could talk. Now, I'm talking to you lot because there's only me, and I feel I need to talk to someone. One of the downsides of living like a hermit on your own, away from society as much as you can. Many upsides, but when you need to pour it out to somebody, there's no one there. And I see you lot as my friends. So if you've actually hung around long enough, then thank you very much for indulging me, and we'll get back to normal next time. And if you've given up and think I'm some kind of weird grumpy old sod who's moaning, you're probably right. And though you're not listening now, thank you for tuning in in the first place. Life is a funny thing. Families are a funny thing. There's no right, there's no wrong. I had a brilliant upbringing, 2 parents who gave me everything they possibly could. One of them, it was just so much like me. We were like buddies. We were just so alike, but I respected him and I listened to him. He was a great man. And then there was my mum, who was nothing like my dad, had nothing in common with me at all, and resented every decision I made. She saw decisions that didn't work out as catastrophic, bad decisions. They're not bad decisions, they're just decisions, and they've got to take the risk, we've got to make decisions, we've got to risk being wrong in life, haven't we? And I've been wrong so many times. I've been wrong more than I've been right, but at the end of the day, I can look round and I can think, that was bloody great. I've just ended up on my bum, but we only get one chance of this. So why not make it eventful? Even if that eventful is kind of negative eventful in a way, rather than just live out mundane tick box ticking and then being successful by the definition of society. I didn't do that. I went all out to be an idiot. I made the most catastrophic decisions. I just worked all my life in tough, hard jobs outside that made me ill and broke my bones. Whereas I know I could have been to university and had a good job in a nice corporation or teaching in a nice school. But I didn't. and I don't regret it for a moment. I met some of the maddest people in the world. I travelled the world. I made great friends. I lost great friends. And it's been fantastic. So that's it. She's gone. I'm here. I've never had a moment so far in the last couple of months that I've been sad about it. I may be in future, it may be delayed, or I may not. But I loved her and she loved me. But we were so different. And I'm glad I got that off my chest. And thank you for listening. Thank you for all being lovely people. If you have tuned in and you're watching this and you think, ooh, what else does he talk about? Subscribe, come along, watch a few of the videos, because they're not always downers. They're mostly positive and upbeat and happy and hippie. Old man hippie with his little black dog, walking through the English countryside talking absolute tosh. We shall see you on the flip. Peace and love.